So for the last couple of weeks, I've gotten a few questions about the heart-shaped box that appears at the beginning of some of my videos. And I wanted to use this as an opportunity to go over some box shapes and what the basic components are for any box. All the ones like these, vary from fairly simple looking boxes to something that's a little bit more of a complex shape, but they all have the same kind of pattern. Let's open this one up, and I'm shooting this from above for a particular reason. You'll notice that each of these is three shapes, essentially: an outer shape, an inner lip, and a pocket. An outer shape, an inner recessed lip, and a pocket. These all follow that same pattern. Even the circular ones are the same thing: outer shape, inner lip, pocket, pocket, outer shape, inner lip. Same thing with these. And even on ones like this, where things are a little more complicated, it's still outer, inner. The lip is actually a removable piece in this case, but it's the same principle again. It's simply three basic shapes, right? One nested inside the other. Now, even on something as complicated as this, it's the same principle, right? Outer, inner lip, pocket. Outer, inner. And this, in this case, like I said, this one is unique in that, like the other one, it has a removable piece that comes in and out that forms that upper lip again. Now, one thing you'll notice on something this complicated is that typically, you would create your parts in Carbide 3D and then just duplicate them. And if you just duplicate them and they're side by side and they look just like this, you're going to run into problems, because then your pocket is going to be on this side and your pieces won't fit together. So what you have to do in Carbide Create is flip your piece over like this so that you're doing pockets in the correct size, and when you flip your box back, it comes together. That's one of the big considerations for complex shapes in these boxes. Now, circular boxes are fairly easy in that the inside, outside, these can all line up and match. The boxes like this or like this that have corners in them can become a bit of a pain because of the fact that when the bit is traveling to the inside like this, it can't get into this little corner here and make a sharp corner. Now, conversely, when I'm cutting this piece, I'm going to the outside, and it could potentially create a nice sharp corner here because the bit isn't passing to the inside like this. So unless I round these corners in Carbide Create, when it comes time to try and fit these two pieces together, they're not going to fit, because this one will have a pointy corner in the inside, and this will have that rounded corner from where the bit couldn't reach. So those are the big things to take into account when you're doing a box like this. But literally, you can follow these principles and build a box in any shape you want. And I'm going to show you now how to do that with the heart-shaped box. Okay, for this project, we're going to go ahead and cut this out of Red Cedar. This has got a really nice color to it and contrast. If you've ever seen Red Cedar in like the home stores, typically it looks like this. And that's because if you lay this stuff out in the sun for a long time, it just goes brown. And what they've got is essentially old cedar. So I'm going to cut this with this piece being the outside of our box, so we'll get some of this nice color here. So when we're doing our cutting, this part will be up. And that should give us a nice box that'll have a nice smell to it and a nice look to it. Okay, so we're going to start our design the way we always do, by setting up our stock here in the settings. So we've got a width of 595, height of 11. Our stock's 0.93 inches thick. And we're going from the lower left this time. And I'm going to set a retract height of 2 millimeters, since I know my stock is fairly flat. And we'll go with that. I'm going to reset our view. This just brings it up to the full width of the screen. And we can go two ways with this. For a heart-shaped design, I can go ahead and make one in Carbide Create, and it's fairly simple. So I can take a box, and I'm going to make this 3 by 3. And then I'm going to make myself a couple of 3-inch circles as well. And in this case, we're doing radius, so 1.5. And I'm just going to copy that. All right, cool. So now I've got these. And it's easy enough to just take this, rotate it 45 degrees. All right, now when I grab these guys, click done. When I grab these guys, you'll notice that I've got dots here at each of the quadrants, and I've got another one in the center. For the square, if I select it, I've got midpoints and endpoints. These are really helpful in getting the pieces locked together, so I can grab this by the center and lock it on that midpoint, and then I can take this one, grab it by the center, and find there, lock it to the midpoint. And now, if I grab all of these guys, I can use my Boolean tool over here to go ahead and unite the shapes, and I've got a nice little heart shape. Now, the other way to do this can seem like a little bit of a plain design here. You know, a lot of people like a little more curve out here on them, or a little bit more of a dramatic point down below. So the other way to do this, I'm going to do function delete to get rid of this, is to go ahead and import an SVG. So I've got a heart shape in my designs, my open source heart. Okay, so now I've got this. And it's got like a little bit more of a curve to it here, which is a little more pleasing to me. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it done. I'm going to grab this outer one and get rid of it. Don't need it. Just need this guy. And since he's a little large, we're going to shrink him just a bit. Let's end up making him 525. Okay, so now that we've got our basic heart shape that we like, we're going to use our offset tool to make the other two elements of the box. We've got an outside path, we need a path for the lip, and a path for the middle pocket. So I'm going to go ahead and make these 1, 3, and like I said, these are kind of arbitrary, and then do another one. This will give me a slightly thicker than 1/4 inch wall on the box. Now, here's where we're going to run into some issues, is down here in the point. Let me create a small circle to show you what I mean. So let's assume we've got a 1/4 inch bit, right? This is what we're going to use for cutting this box out. So when I come around the outside of this, it can make that nice sharp turn, right? No problem. However, when it comes around on the inside to cut our matching piece, there's going to be a little piece of wood down there that's not going to get cut, which means our lid will not come together the way we think it should. So what I need to do is nip out these corners here in order to make everything fit together nicely. And I'm going to go ahead, even though I don't necessarily need to, and nip off this outside one as well. Mostly I do that just because a sharp pointy box is never as nice to feel in your hands as something that's a little more rounded and textural. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a copy of this. All right, I'm going to move it down here, and I'm going to bring this guy down, and I'm going to zoom way in for this. And you notice I've got snap to grid off up here. So I want to take this guy and bring him down to where he just touches the two sides there. And this takes a little finagling and a little testing. There, we're going to call that good. So I'm going to select this now, and then my circle. Selecting them in this order means my circle has a little dotted line, and when I come over to my Boolean tools over here, I can cut that circle out. So now I've got this little piece. I don't need this out here anymore, and I'm going to need 3 of these guys. So let me reset my view, a little tiny, and I'm going to copy him 3 times. Then I'm going to zoom back in a little bit. And now, like I said with the nodes, I can grab my node here in the corner and use that to fit it right in there. Same with these, right? Fit those right in. All right, so now I select this guy, select my little piece here, and we do our Boolean again, subtract, bang, that's gone. Same with these guys. Okay, now you can sometimes get left little artifacts, like you'll end up with a stray line coming out. If you do that, use the edit mode over here, and you can delete any one of those nodes to straighten things out. So I also want to show you one other thing here. If we zoom way in, you'll notice because I cut my corner pieces out, there's a little kind of a hump here and kind of a hump here and a slightly less profound one on this one. This is going to bite you in the fanny sometimes if you try and put these together, let's say coming in here. I'm going to group these guys, and if I just copy, group, bring this down, because of the way our boxes fit together, this little lumpy piece is going to be on opposite sides of both these boxes. So what I really want to do is mirror them. And it doesn't look like anything's changed, but it's put both of those little lumpy spaces essentially in the same place. And that means even if there's some unevenness down here, this one will match the unevenness on both sides because we've now mirrored it. So now we've got 2 mirrored pieces that we can use. And all we have to do now is set up our different toolpaths for them. So let's go in here. And I'm going to let's cut the lips first. So this one is going to be the top of our box. So that one needs to go to the inside of it. Contour, inside, and we're just going to do 0.2. I'm going to set my bit to 250 and leave everything else. Okay, top lip. All right. Then I need to come down here, and this guy is going to go to the outside. So I'm going to contour him outside right. Bottom lip. Okay, so now we've got those, and you just kind of get an idea. One's inside, one's outside. That's good. Now we want to cut our inner pocket. So we're going to cut this one, and we can cut both of these because they're going to be roughly the same. Contour, pocket. So our stock bottom is 930. I want to leave us about 1/4 of an inch of material there. So let's do 2. And that will be our pocket. Okay, that looks good. We're still on our 1/4" bit. Groovy. Alright, so now we've got those. And let's do our outside. I'm going to reset our view for this. And our outsides are both going to be cut to the bottom, so we can cut those in one operation as well. We're going to go outside, we're going to do stock bottom, and then we're going to set ourselves some tabs. Always remember to set tabs, or bad things will happen. And I usually find 5 millimeters of width is pretty much fine for most things. Okay, and that one goes to the stock bottom outside. Call that cutout. Okay, and now all we have to do is save our G-code and cut. Okay, so now we've got our 1/4" bit in, and I've got it on this corner of the stock, and I'm just going to bring it down and do a quick touch to make sure that we set 0 correctly. Just okay, paper's in there snug. Now I can set my 0. Done. And now all I need to do is get my dust collection set up here and load up the file, and we're ready to cut. So here is our box, and we've run into a small problem. You'll notice that while the lid fits nice and tight, there's a nice big gap between the top and the bottom. This is due to a problem that I've had a lot with Carbide Create, in that it sets a default value for every one of your tool paths of like 0.394, and if you're not paying attention, you forget to set a number in there, and it cuts 0.394 instead of the 0.2 that I wanted it to cut. Fortunately, I've been down this hole before, and I know how to fix it. So we're going to go back into Carbide Create real quick, and I'll show you how to deal with this little problem. Okay, so the first thing we need to do to fix my little boo-boo is I'm going to go ahead and save a copy of this. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and just delete all these because we're going to need to recreate some stuff here. Go back into my design. I'm going to keep the bottom one, get rid of the top one. They're essentially the same, so it doesn't make any difference. But then I'm going to come back in. I'm going to set this to a height of about 6. And my new piece of wood is a 1/4" piece of wood. Just a hair actually over a 1/4 inch. And everything else looks good. Okay, reset. Now, the goal is we want a piece of wood that basically follows these two contours, right? So I can get rid of this inner guy. I don't need him. We're focusing on our inner and our outer lip. Okay, so I'm going to take this. Let's see, I probably want to make this just a hair bigger. Let's see. And I want to do that because that'll let me sand these edges down flush and make sure I've got it completely right. I don't know how small adjustment it's going to let me make. That looks good. Okay, cool. So now I've got that. I'm going to go back into my tool paths, And I'm going to do contour outside and do some tabs. Stock bottom. Let's make sure we change that this time. And I'll add outside tabs in all four corners. Well, whatever. They're not corners. Let's see, 5. Okay. Now for this inner piece, we're going to cut to the end. Oops. Let me do that right. Outer. Cool. Okay, so that's saved. Now for the inner piece, we're going to go ahead and cut to the inside, right? That makes sense. To the inside, use the stock bottom. And I'm going to put some tabs on this simply because if it breaks free in the middle of this, it might bust some things up, and we don't particularly want that. And I'm going to put them down here on these edges where they're going to be a little bit easier to cut out. So 5. And we're going to put those here and here. Tell it okay. Okay, so now we have our inside and our outside. And we keep our 1/4" bit. And let's go ahead and save the G code, and we should be ready to rumble. Okay, so we've got our pieces of our box here. And we've got our little heart-shaped ring. And I did a little bit of cleanup on it. We'll do some more, but just wanted to go ahead and test fit this. Make sure that we don't bust it. And yeah, it looks like we can do a little bit more cleanup on that, and then we'll just have a nice kind of a feature ring on the box, and our lid will fit down nice and flush on it. So let's get this cleaned up, and I'll get it ready for some finish, and I'll give you some advice on doing finishing on this kind of cedar that will keep the smell and that nice pretty look to it. Okay, so here's our cleaned up box. Got a nice finish inside and out. I've got my little white ring there around the edge. And with a box like this, where it's cedar and it's a really nice smelling wood, I don't want to finish this with something like a shellac that'll cover up that smell. So what I tend to use instead is this. This is a food grade mineral oil like they use for cutting boards, and it'll protect a little bit from water on something like this, but it doesn't interfere at all with the smell. So the other thing I love about it is what it does to cedar. So I'm just put a little bit on a cloth here so you can get an idea. Is you get this really wonderful, rich purple to it. It looks really nice once it's all finished up. And in combination with that, do a little bit more here. For our edge, you'll get a nice contrast as well. So you're going to get something that looks a little bit like that on our edge. And that ends up being a really nice finish for something like this. And it provides just enough protection without taking away from either the appearance or the smell of the wood. The other thing I would say about this is that if this is a box that's going to be left out in the sun, you're going to get a lot of browning on this. So don't leave these like on a windowsill or something like that, because they'll end up going completely brown. But other than that, this is what I would typically do. I would maybe V-carve something into the top. Script letters look really nice on this. If you can find the font for candy hearts, you might be able to do some of the phrases from that. But have fun with the design, play around with it a little bit, and see what you can come up with. And that's all for this week.